Hi, everyone. Welcome to Unveiling Islam. I'm David Wood here with Brother Rachid. And Brother Rachid, there are lots of specifics that we can get into when we're examining the Quran. There are all sorts of different issues that arise, things that the Quran says on different topics. But lots of Christians don't even know what the Quran is. They think it's, the Muslim version of the Bible, and that's true in a sense as far as being their core text, but there are some serious differences. So why don't you start us off like at the very beginning of the most basic issues, like what does the word Quran even mean?
Quran is from the Arabic word Quran. So Quran is not even an Arabic word. So even if Muslims say it's Arabic, it's not. It's Syriac. It comes from Syriac language.
Quite a bit of Syriac going around.
Yeah.
In there, some sources.
It's Qaryono, actually. Or Qaryana, it depends if the West or the East. So Qaryono, Qaryana. Qaryono or Qaryana means a scriptures, a liturgy. So when in the early days they go to church and they read certain readings, a reading is called Qaryono, Quran. So Muhammad or whoever compiled the Quran used that word, a liturgy, to name this book. We read also in history when they gathered the book, they didn't find a name for it. Actually, some sources say they tried to name it a gospel. And so they say Mushaf. Now we say Mushaf. Mushaf is a book. Sahifa is anything written, we can call it Sahifa. This is Sahifa, for example. So Mushaf is a book, that the gathering of pages. So it's a book. Mushaf is a book. Quran is this book. It's written in Arabic, classical Arabic, very old. It's like reading Shakespeare now, or even worse. So we don't understand most of it. If you go to mosques or go to the street and ask Muslims in Morocco or Tunisia or Egypt, you ask them some basic words in the Quran, they would not know the meaning.
And people don't even scholars don't know the meaning. I was just reading a chapter of the Quran and reading the commentary, and it actually said there are 16 interpretations of what this word means. So I was like, what?
There is not a single verse in the Quran I never read in the commentaries, there are differences about this verse. Until now, I never found one that there is a total agreement about the meaning of that verse.
And that is, I think that is an issue, because one of the things the Quran repeatedly claims is, it talks about how clear it is. Like Allah brags.
Arabi Mubin.
Yeah,
it's like
Allah
a clear Arabic
the
book.
Yeah, so like the impression you get from reading these claims about how clear it is like Allah had all eternity to get this book exactly the way he wanted it, and he made it like the perfect, most clear language he could, and then you read it, and it's you can read a dozen completely different interpretations of a verse.
Yes, and it's 114 chapters, and it starts with the longest to the shortest, kinda.
Very strange way to arrange your
exactly. No chronology, and sometimes it jumps from one topic to another. It's talking about Moses now. Suddenly Noah, suddenly Jesus, suddenly about the polytheists at Muhammad's time, suddenly about how heaven proves the existence of God, and you see no link between topics. It's not like the Bible, you read Genesis and then you expect what's coming next and you follow the process. In the Quran, there is no chronology, there is no logic. And that's because of the way how it was written. Muhammad had scribes around him, so each time he gets this trance and he starts I think for me it's an epilepsy, we can talk about it.
It certainly sounds like that.
And then after a while he wakes up and he says, hey, write this verse, it came to me. And they start writing, then they collected them later. So Of course, they didn't put them in chronology, so they just like kind of gathered them together and just compiled them. And they started naming the chapters. Oh, put that in the chapter that talks about the cow. So now we have a chapter of the cow. Oh, put that in the chapter that talks about Mary. And then we have the chapter of Mary. And then, oh yeah, put that in the chapter of Al Imran or Al Ma'idah, the table. So they put it in the table. And that's why it's like a chaos. It's just a bunch of verses gathered together, put in this book. And when you read it, you get really confused.
Yeah, that is an ongoing issue with the arrangement. What's interesting is we can understand why this difficulty arose, because if Muhammad is just, on various occasions when people are asking him questions, then he claims to have received a revelation. They don't have it in a book. They don't have he's not making this book as he goes along, and then they're just adding new chapters to it. He's giving verses and passages to his followers, telling them to memorize it, and then some of them are memorizing it and so on. So it's all circulating. And then Muhammad dies, and it's like, oh, we've got all this stuff. Yeah. We've got all this stuff that Muhammad's been quoting for all these years to us, and we need to put it together. And it's just so weird to say, hey, let's just, we got the little prayer at the beginning, but other than that, we'll go longest to shortest, even though it's completely out of order.
One of the problems is the Quran doesn't give you even the background of certain verses. So we have to dig somewhere else to understand why he said this, for whom, and what's the topic here exactly. For example, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنْ ذِي الْقَرْنَيْنِ. They ask you about ذِي الْقَرْنَيْنِ. Who? Yeah. Who asked? Why? So you don't understand. You have to go to commentaries. They say some Jews, some polytheists, different interpretations. And that started from the beginning of the Quran. You of course, you studied the first revelation, how it came to Muhammad. He told us he was in a cave, and suddenly the angel came to him and said, read, and then the first chapter in the Quran started, which is 96. But who knows exactly? Because even that story, when we dig, at the beginning they said it was a dream, and then they changed it through history. Now it's a fact. It's not just a dream. It happened literally. They believe it happened as is. We don't know exactly, and that's why the Quran is just a collection. So that 96 is not even, it should be the first one.
Yeah, if you were arranging it in order of revelation. Like you could, there are multiple ways of arranging the material that make sense. One would be in order that Muhammad's receiving the revelation, or you could go chronologically. Like if it's talking about Abraham, put that here.
Or
if it's
Adam
about Moses,
first, yeah.
And putting all these in order. But no, they went longest to shortest.
And that's why if you want to study the story of Moses, you will not find it in one chapter. You have to just collect verses from here and there, and then you have the story of Moses. And some of them are repeated literally the same. And if you want to study the life of Jesus, you need to gather from here and there and here and there, and then you collect. It's not like the Gospels. It starts with the birth and then ends with the crucifixion and the resurrection. No, it's not like that. You just go, it's scattered all over the Quran.
Yeah, and so it's quite a bit of work. And so some of the issues that you've already brought up, one, the Quran is saying things, if you do not know what this is responding to or what question this is responding to or the background, you don't even know the people who are named. If you don't know the historical background, you can't understand this. And then the way it's arranged is confusing, especially as something we'll be talking about eventually, the idea of abrogation, that earlier revelations can be canceled by later ones. But if it's not in order, you need all of these outside sources and commentaries to understand a book that constantly brags about how clear and fully explained that it already is.
The Quran is not sufficient for a Muslim. The Quran always has to have something with it. It's not like the Bible. You can read the Bible and it's sufficient for a Christian. For the Quran, you will not understand even some verses, what they are saying, the meaning, unless you have the background and have other commentaries that will help you. For example, when it talks about Zayd divorcing his wife. Who's Zayd? Mm-hmm. What's the relationship with Muhammad? And we don't know. So you need to dig somewhere else. Or like when it mentions Luqman, we don't know.
Yeah,
who's Luqman? Who's this guy?
Yeah.
Who's Dhul Qarnayn? Who's this? So you need to dig. And the problem when you go to commentaries, they don't have one opinion, sir. Many times, as I said, so they have different versions. So you're just, it's a very difficult task, actually.
Yeah, and lots of times the sources that you would need to even understand these passages are much later, and so how can I trust them? One more important difference just for Christians who are watching, because you've mentioned the Bible. The Bible's a collection of writings of various witnesses, and here it talks about Adam and Abraham and Moses and Jesus and so on, but it's all just from revelation supposedly to one guy, Muhammad.
Yeah, Muhammad supposedly got revelation through the angel Gabriel from God, Allah himself. It's his word, letter for letter, word for word. He had no hand in it. He was just a receiving vessel. Mm-hmm. Like he receives it and then he says it, and it's written in Arabic. You can't pray in other language. They say it can't be even translated. They say the translation of the meanings of the Quran. God will not accept your prayer unless you do it in Arabic, because it's the holy language. And if you want to get really the right meaning, you have to study it in Arabic. That's what they say. Because even translation, it picks one side or one background or one commentary, mm-hmm. and it follows it.
Yeah. And so at the end of the day, this all comes down to one witness. It's all from Muhammad, so everything's riding on one guy, as opposed to the Bible, where we've got an entire cloud of witnesses explaining these things to us. And so seems like we need to look at these things a bit more closely, and we'll be doing that in future installments here.